The unseen whispers. The air was thick with a suffocating fog as Laura stepped into the devil's playground. Her heart raced, but the cacophony of whispers, like a symphony of the damned, edged deeper into the shadows. The rusted merry-go-round creaked eerily, and Laura felt a sinister presence lurking just out of sight. Laura had heard the stories of the abandoned amusement park, how it was once a place filled with laughter and joy, now tainted by the malevolence that had seeped into its foundations. Locals avoided the area, and anyone who dared to venture there returned with chilling tales of terror despite the warnings. Laura's curiosity had gotten the better of her. She walked through the fog, her footsteps muffled by the damp grass underfoot. As she approached the decrepit Ferris wheel, the whispers grew louder. The disembodied voices weaved together, telling tales of betrayal, torment, and grief. The words echoed in her mind, gnawing at her sanity. A sudden gust of wind blew the fog away, revealing a spectral figure standing near the entrance to the haunted house. The apparition seemed to be beckoning her, its mouth moving in sync with the whispers that surrounded her. With a mixture of terror and fascination, Laura followed the figure into the house. Inside, the darkness was oppressive, as if the shadows themselves were trying to smother her. The wallpaper, once vibrant and colorful, was now peeling and stained with age. The whispers grew louder and more insistent, filling her ears and drowning out all other sounds. The figure led her to a room at the end of the hall. As she entered, a flickering light revealed a dusty, broken mirror. Laura couldn't tear her gaze away from her own reflection, her face twisted in terror, eyes wide with fear. The whispers converged into a single voice, louder and more piercing than ever before. "You have come seeking answers," the voice said, emanating from her own reflection. "You will learn the truth, but at a terrible price." Laura's heart pounded in her chest as the whispers swirled around her. The stories of those who had fallen victim to the devil's playground playing out before her eyes. She saw visions of suffering and despair, each one worse than the last. The spectral figure reappeared, now standing behind her in the mirror, its lifeless eyes boring into her soul. "The price has been paid," it hissed, and the whispers ceased. Laura stumbled out of the haunted house, her mind shattered by the horrors she had witnessed. The fog swallowed her whole as she wandered aimlessly through the devil's playground, her own whispered tale now joining the cacophony of voices that haunted the cursed grounds. And there, deep within the shadows, the sinister presence that had lured Laura to the devil's playground smiled. Another soul had been claimed, and the symphony of the damned grew louder. Laura wandered the devil's playground, her mind a shattered kaleidoscope of horror and despair. The weight of the terrible knowledge she had gained in the haunted house pressed down on her, suffocating her spirit. The whispers had become her constant companions, as inseparable from her as her own shadow. As the days turned to weeks, Laura's gaunt frame grew more emaciated. She was tormented by the ghosts of the amusement park, but in her broken state, she could not bring herself to leave. The once gleaming rides creaked and groaned, their rusty hinges echoing the pain in Laura's soul. One day, as she stumbled through the park, she found herself drawn to the old roller coaster, the tracks disappearing into the fog like a twisted metal serpent. As she climbed the rickety steps, she noticed the whispers seemed to change. They were no longer just a symphony of the damned, but now carried the faintest hint of hope. Reaching the top, she discovered a dilapidated car on the tracks. The voices urged her to sit, and as she did, the roller coaster shuddered to life. Laura closed her eyes, bracing herself for the terrifying descent. The coaster roared through the fog, the chilling wind tearing at her face, while the whispers grew louder and more urgent. As the ride reached its climax, the car plunged into a hidden tunnel beneath the park. The darkness was absolute, and the whispers grew silent, as if holding their breath. Suddenly, the car jolted to a stop, and Laura found herself in a cavern illuminated by a soft, ghostly light. In the center of the cavern stood a figure wreathed in shadows. It was the sinister presence that had led her to the devil's playground, the architect of her torment. And as the whispers returned, now a chorus of desperate pleas, Laura realized that this entity was the source of the park's curse. "You have seen the pain I have caused," the figure said, its voice a chilling echo of the whispers. "But you have also seen the hope that lies within the darkness." Laura's heart raced, her fear momentarily forgotten in the face of this new revelation. "Why show me this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Because," the figure replied, "you have the power to end the curse, to free the souls trapped within the devil's playground." As the whispers washed over her, Laura felt a spark of determination ignite within her. She stood tall, her eyes locked on the figure. "Tell me what I must do," she said, her voice steady. The figure stared at her for a long moment before it spoke. "Must confront the darkness within yourself and within the park." Only then can the curse be lifted. Laura nodded. Her resolve strengthened. She would face the darkness, conquer her own fears, and free the tormented souls trapped within the devil's playground. And as she began her journey into the depths of the cursed amusement park, the whispers followed. Now a chorus of hope and determination, united in the quest to break the chains of their eternal torment. And Laura's quest to break the curse took her to the darkest corners of the devil's playground, forcing her to confront her own fears and the horrors that had befallen the souls trapped there. With each step, she felt the whispers change. Once a cacophony of pain and torment, they had become a chorus of hope and encouragement, urging her forward on her journey. During her exploration, Laura stumbled upon a long-forgotten library hidden beneath the park's surface. The decaying walls were lined with ancient tomes, their pages filled with the dark secrets of the devil's playground. As she searched through the musty volumes, she discovered the origins of the curse. The sinister presence that haunted the park was once a man named Nathaniel Blackwood. Consumed by his desire for power, Blackwood had made a pact with a demonic force, sacrificing his soul in exchange for eternal life. In the process, he had cursed the amusement park, trapping the souls of those who ventured there and feeding off their torment. Armed with this knowledge, Laura began to devise a plan to break the curse and free the trapped souls. The whispers guided her, sharing their wisdom and experiences, and together they crafted a ritual to banish Blackwood and his dark power. As the day of the ritual drew near, Laura prepared herself. Drawing strength from the whispers and her own determination, she gathered the necessary items: a silver dagger, a vial of holy water, and a fragment of the haunted mirror from the house where her ordeal had begun. On the night of the ritual, Laura ventured to the heart of the devil's playground, the whispers by her side. She stood before the entrance to the haunted house, her heart racing. With a deep breath, she pushed open the door and stepped inside. The darkness within the house seemed to pulse with malevolence, but Laura refused to be deterred. She made her way through the twisted corridors, following the path to the room with the broken mirror. There she began the ritual. As she chanted the words of the ancient spell, the whispers joined her, their voices harmonizing in a haunting melody. The room shook and the shadows writhed as Blackwood's spectral form appeared before her. "You cannot defeat me, Est." His eyes filled with hatred. "I'm eternal." But Laura's determination held firm. With a final cry, she plunged the silver dagger into the fragment of the haunted mirror, releasing the trapped souls within. The room filled with blinding light, and the whispers crescended into a triumphant chorus. As the light faded, the sinister presence of Nathaniel Blackwood was gone, banished to the darkness from whence he came. The curse was broken, and the souls of the devil's playground were finally free. Laura emerged from the haunted house, the first light of dawn breaking through the fog. The amusement park, once a place of terror and despair, now seemed peaceful and serene. The whispers had fallen silent, their voices finally at rest. With a smile, Laura turned her back on the devil's playground, her heart lighter than it had been in years. She had confronted the darkness within herself and the park, and in doing so, had brought hope and freedom to the souls trapped there. And as she walked away, the sun rose over the horizon, chasing away the shadows and ushering in a new beginning for the once cursed land. Crimson Carousel. Tom ventured into the devil's playground, drawn by the siren call of the abandoned carnival. As the crimson street carousel spun, he discovered that each ornate horse held a nightmarish secret, and the price of a ride was one's very soul. The stories of the devil's playground had long been whispered among the townsfolk, a chilling tale of a once vibrant carnival now tainted by malevolent forces. Tom, always intrigued by the macabre, had decided to investigate the site for himself. As he approached the decaying park, he could feel the air grow colder, the shadows more oppressive. Tom's eyes were immediately drawn to the carousel, illuminated by an airy crimson glow. The horses appeared lifelike, their glass eyes seeming to follow his every move. Despite the sense of unease that washed over him, he couldn't resist the allure of the spectral ride. As he stepped onto the carousel, the music began, a haunting, discordant melody that sent shivers down his spine. The ride started to spin, and Tom found himself unable to tear his gaze away from the horses. Their eyes seemed to hold him captive, whispering of unspeakable horrors. As the carousel picked up speed, Tom realized that the horses were changing, each one transformed into a grotesque figure, their wooden forms shifting and contorting in ways that defied logic. They became twisted manifestations of human fears. A serpentine creature with venomous fangs, a monstrous spider with human-like features, a ghastly visage of a long-dead relative. Tom's heart raced and a primal fear gripped his chest. He tried to jump from the ride, but found himself unable to move. The music grew louder, drowning out his panicked breaths as the crimson light intensified, casting nightmarish shadows on the ground. Then in the midst of the chaos, a figure emerged, a tall, dark man with a sinister smile, his eyes as black as the abyss. He approached Tom, his voice smooth and cold. "Welcome, Tom," he said, "to the Crimson Carousel. I see you've discovered the secrets it holds, but you must know that such knowledge comes at a price." Tom's terror reached its peak, and he found his voice. "Please," he begged, "let me go. I didn't know." The dark figure chuckled. "Oh, you were so curious, and now the price must be paid. Your soul, in exchange for the secrets you have uncovered." The carousel came to a sudden stop, and Tom felt a searing pain in his chest as his very essence was ripped away. The figure took his soul, adding it to the collection of tormented spirits trapped within the nightmarish ride. With a sinister laugh, the figure disappeared, and Tom was left alone in the devil's playground. His body now was twisted and grotesque as the monstrous figures that surrounded him. He had become a part of the Crimson Carousel, a warning to others who dared to seek the secrets hidden within the devil's playground. And as the carousel resumed its haunting dance, Tom's silent screams joined the cacophony of the tormented souls, their chilling cries echoing through the cursed park for all eternity. As the days turned into weeks, Tom's tormented spirit remained trapped on the Crimson Carousel, his silent screams joining the chorus of lost souls that inhabited the haunted ride. The once vibrant carnival had become his prison, and with each passing moment, his despair grew deep. Word of Tom's fate began to spread throughout the town, whispered in hushed tones among the terrified townsfolk. It was said that the sinister figure who had claimed his soul was Nathaniel Blackwood, the cursed man who had cast a dark shadow over the devil's playground for centuries. In the heart of the town, a young woman named Sarah listened to the chilling tales with a growing sense of determination. Tom had been her closest friend, and she could not stand idly by while his soul languished in torment. She resolved to venture into the devil's playground and free him from his terrible fate. Sarah knew that she would need help to face the dark forces that ruled the park. So she sought out the town's elder, a wise woman named Abigail. Abigail had lived in the town for longer than anyone could remember, and she had studied the ancient lore surrounding the devil's playground. After listening to Sarah's plea, Abigail agreed to help her, but warned that the journey would be fraught with danger. They would have to confront the malevolent spirits of the park, and ultimately face Blackwood himself in order to save Tom's soul. Armed with their courage and the knowledge of the ancient rituals needed to banish Blackwood's dark power, Sarah and Abigail ventured into the heart of the devil's playground. As they approached the carousel, they could hear the faint, haunting melody that accompanied its endless dance. They found Tom, his twisted form barely recognizable as the friend Sarah had once known. Tears filled her eyes, but she steeled herself, knowing that they had to act quickly. As Sarah and Abigail began the ritual, the carousel groaned and shuddered, the trapped souls within sensing that their salvation was near. The crimson glow intensified, and the dark figure of Nathaniel Blackwood appeared before them, his eyes filled with fury. "You dare to challenge me?" he hissed, his voice cold and menacing. Sarah stood her ground, her voice steady. "I've come to free Tom and the others you've trapped on this cursed ride." A sinister smile played on Blackwood's lips. "Very well. But know this, if you fail, souls will join them in their eternal torment." As the ritual reached its climax, the carousel spun faster, and the trapped souls began to break free from their monstrous forms. The crimson glow faded, and the dark power that had held the park in its grip began to wane. Blackwood's spectral form writhed in pain, his powers slipping away. In a final act of desperation, he lunged towards Sarah, but it was too late. The ritual was complete, and his dark presence was banished from the devil's playground. The carousel came to a stop, and Tom's twisted form was restored to its human state. He embraced Sarah, his gratitude and relief evident in his tear-filled eyes. The other souls, finally free from their torment, began to disperse, their whispered goodbyes a testament to the bravery of Sarah and Abigail. As the sun rose over the once cursed park, the shadows of the devil's playground seemed to lift, and the haunted carnival stood as a testament to the power of friendship, courage and hope. The shadows embrace, lost in the devil's playground. Ellie stumbled upon a dilapidated house of mirrors. As she wandered through the twisted maze, she found herself pursued by her own reflection, a menacing doppelganger that hungered for her life. Ellie had always been fascinated by the dark and mysterious, and the tales of the devil's playground had captured her imagination. Despite the warnings of the townsfolk, she had ventured into the haunted park in search of adventure, never expecting the horrors that awaited her. As she entered the crumbling house of mirrors, the air grew colder, and an eerie silence descended upon her. The once shiny mirrors were now cracked and smudged, their frames warped and twisted like the souls that inhabited the forsaken park. Ellie hesitated for a moment, and a sense of dread creeping up her spine. But her curiosity pushed her forward, and she began to navigate the maze of reflections. At first, the distorted images of herself were unnerving, but she soon grew accustomed to their presence. However, as she ventured deeper into the labyrinth, she noticed something amiss. Her reflection seemed to take on a life of its own, its movements no longer mirroring her own. As she watched in terror, the figure in the mirror began to change, its features contorting into a sinister version of herself. With a sudden jolt of fear, Ellie realized that her doppelganger was no mere trick of the light. It was a malevolent entity born from the darkest recesses of her own psyche, and it was hungry for her life. She tried to flee, her breath coming in ragged gasps, as she navigated the twisted corridors of the House of Mirrors. But her doppelganger was relentless, always just a step behind her, its dark eyes filled with a predatory hunger. As Ellie raced through the maze, the line between her own reality and the twisted world of her reflection began to blur. The mirrors seemed to pulse with a sinister energy, trapping her within their suffocating embrace. Cornered and desperate, Ellie realized that she could not shun her shadowy pursuer. She would have to confront it, to face the darkness within herself if she wanted to escape the devil's playground. Gathering her courage, Ellie turned to face her doppelganger. The creature was a twisted version of herself, its eyes devoid of empathy and its smile a cruel mockery of her. "Why are you doing this?" Ellie cried, her voice trembling with fear. "Because I am the darkness within you," the doppelganger replied, his voice an eerie echo of Ellie's own. "I'm your doubts, your fears, your deepest secrets, and I will consume you until there is nothing left." Ellie knew that she could not defeat the creature by force. Instead, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath, focusing on the light within her, the love, hope, and compassion that defined her true self. As she embraced the light, the doppelganger began to falter. Its once confident grin turned into a snarl of frustration, and it began to fade away, unable to withstand the brightness of Ellie's spirit. With a final desperate scream, the doppelganger disappeared, leaving Ellie alone in the House of Mirrors. As she stepped outside, the devil's playground seemed to lose some of its power, the shadows receding from the haunted park. Though she had faced the darkness within herself and emerged victorious, Ellie knew that the battle would never be truly over. The darkness would always linger at the edges of her mind, waiting for a chance to strike. But she also knew that she had the power to keep it at bay, to embrace the light and defy the shadows that threatened to consume her. As she walked away from the devil's playground, Ellie felt a newfound strength and resilience coursing through her veins. Back in town, Ellie recounted a harrowing experience to her friends and family, who listened with a mixture of relief. The tale of her confrontation with her own darkness quickly spread throughout the community, serving as a cautionary tale and a testament to the power of facing one's fears. Over time, the town began to change. Those who had been consumed by their own darkness found the courage to face their demons. Inspired by Ellie's bravery, the once terrified townsfolk banded together, determined to reclaim their home from the shadows that had plagued them for so long. As for the devil's playground, it remained a desolate and haunting place, a grim reminder of the darkness that lurked within the hearts of men. But it also stood as a symbol of hope for those who had faced their fears and emerged victorious. Ellie's life would never be the same after her encounter with the sinister doppelganger in the House of Mirrors. She would always carry the knowledge of the darkness within her, and the constant struggle to keep it at bay. But she also carried the light, the love and compassion that had saved her from the shadow's embrace. And as she moved forward, her heart full of hope and determination, Ellie knew that she would never again succumb to the darkness, for within her shone a light that could never be extinguished, a beacon of hope that would guide her through even the darkest of nights.